after I got shot out and I was like in the dead box, he comes up to me and he's like, "So what happened?" And I was like, "What do you mean what happened? I got shot." And he's like, "Yeah, where'd you get shot from? Where'd you go? Where were you looking? And who was shooting at you?" And then it started to like dawn on me that there was a little bit more to this like speedball stuff than I'd actually realized. And then I started getting into the team stuff and yeah, it just became so much more fun once I realized that there was a lot more to it than I initially thought.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of Down Under Paintball. Today, we're joined by Will Macdonald, also known as Wimpy. For those of you that don't know him, he's one of our big contributors to paintball coming in from South Australia. He's done a lot with the South Australian scene, helping promote them. He's done a lot with the Super Sevens over on the East Coast, doing a lot of filming, a lot of photography. So he's really covers a lot of bases in paintball, and we're going to find a bit more about him today and a bit more about his history. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Down Under Paintball. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the South Australian paintball team and to help paintball scene rather. And to help me with that, I've got Will Macdonald. Thanks for joining us.
No problem, Scotty. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks very much for giving up your time and helping out with the show.
No, it's an honor. I love the initiative. I love the initiative you're doing.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit harder than I thought. It's a bit more work goes into it, but I'm learning every episode we do. So thanks for putting up with it.
Yeah, sure thing.
So let's start at the very beginning. So how did you get into paintball, and what was your first paintball experience?
Well, I think I have a very different experience than many others. I've told this story to a few people before, and over the years I've probably embellished it. I don't really know exactly if this is how it all went down, but I recall living with a bunch of guys at what we called the Parkton House, and we were playing video games late into the night one night. We were playing like GoldenEye or something like that, and one day we were just like, why do we sit here playing video games? We should go get paintball guns and just play paintball. And to my recollection, which again might be flawed, we jumped into the car in the middle of the night and drove to the next state over, which was 20 minutes away, to the 24-hour Walmart and just straight up bought paintball guns at like 2 a.m. And the next day, we just like not knowing what we were doing and probably not being too safe about it either, just started tinkering with paintball and trying to figure out how much it hurt and that sort of thing. And, we just started playing in the woods out in the back, no chronograph or anything. Wow. Every now and then we would try to like dial the guns up or down, but not necessarily out of safety. It was more like, oh, I don't want Drew to have an advantage. His looks like it's shooting faster, so I better dial mine up. We all had these rubbish guns. They were like spider clones called Eradicators. And
Eradicators.
Yeah, the Eradicators. They were awful. And so we would just like go to the local sporting goods shop and buy CO2 canisters, and we'd have to like fill them up before a day of play. And we'd always be looking for somebody who had some land, and they'd let us on. And we'd get like 2-on-2, 4-on-4, and like that's just what I thought paintball was. Eventually, I found out that there are actual like paintball fields, and there's events and things like that you can run. And I eventually came into like big games and scenarios and bush ball, which I thought was like pretty exciting. So started doing that a little bit.
It is.
Yeah, well, being a bush pig, you would think that, yeah.
Yeah, it's always more fun in the bush.
But then I moved on to like a Titman. I thought, oh man, I got a Titman. This is awesome. And we started playing like scenario bush ball. And I just remember one day being at one of these events where there was some speedball going on as well, and they had like hyperball fields and some air bunkers and stuff like that. And I just remember like getting ready to play scenario and seeing these guys out there, and a game would start, and there'd just be like twice as much paint in the air straight away that I was gonna shoot all day long. Like I was just blown away by this like tournament, like speedball stuff that was happening at these events on the side. At the time, it wasn't really my thing, though. I was still just doing all this woods ball, bush ball stuff. And it was fun. I did enjoy that. But eventually I
What
moved to, yeah, go.
I was just going to say, what sort of year was this? What time period do you
Oh,
think?
yeah, that's a tough one. I have no concept of time or space. So let me think. Um, it maybe 2001. Maybe, yeah, maybe 2001. That's a
Yeah,
punt.
okay.
Um,
Yep. What would have
eventually I
been
moved
around
to,
then if they had air like the air ball bunkers? Yeah, they
yeah,
didn't come around until around then, I think. So that sounds
I
about
think
right.
they were just sort of popping up. This field in particular still had a big corrugated hyperball field, and that seemed to be like the thing. Everyone was still, you know, it's come full circle, right? Everyone loves hyperball again.
Yeah, hyperballers, they call it wiper ball. I've heard it.
Wiper ball.
Yeah.
Well, you probably have to wipe some because you're getting all the paint splatter off of those bunkers, right?
Yeah, it reminds me of I've seen photos of that and people playing in the woods, behind the old stick, just a barricade made of sticks and just covered in spray. It looks like a messy old time.
Yeah. Eventually I did though. I kind of got into the sort of speedball tournament scene when I moved to a place called Charlottesville, and there really wasn't any bush ball, woods ball sort of a scene there, but there was a paintball store 5 minutes down the road from my apartment, and there was a tournament field 20 minutes from my apartment, and I was like, well, either I quit playing paintball or I adapt. And yeah, it was pretty quick that I just kind of packed up my camo and whatnot and started playing speedball. And yeah, I except for just like the odd fun day, I kind of haven't really looked back ever since.
So did you take to the speedball field with your tipman, or was there an upgrade there?
Eventually, but I 100% I went out there with like a Titman with a flatline barrel, and it was very intimidating to go out there. And everyone's like, wearing their tournament gear with proper guns, and I've got a flatline barrel on a speedball field. Um,
You can swing the flatline barrel. Is that the one you can shoot paintballs around corners?
that's the Apex. The flatline
Apex,
barrel
okay. Yeah.
puts the backspin on it, but you can't change it. So it just goes like straight and flat. You can't,
Yeah,
stuff
okay.
around corners. But
The
I'll
sniper.
never forget one of those days when I was out there playing, because I at the time just thought like, okay, we go out, we hide behind stuff, we try to shoot more people than we get shot, and one of us will win. And I went out, and my buddy Owen, at the time I didn't know him, but he became a really good friend of mine. He After I got shot out and I was like in the dead box, he comes up to me and he's like, "So what happened?" And I was like, "What do you mean what happened? I got shot." And he's like, "Yeah, where'd you get shot from? Where'd you go? Where were you looking? And who was shooting at you?" And then it started to like dawn on me that there's a little bit more to this like speedball stuff than I'd actually realized. And then I started getting into the team stuff, and yeah, it just became so much more fun once I realized that there was a lot more to it than I initially thought.
So was there a big scene for that, like a tournament, a local tournament scene, or were you traveling when you started getting into that a bit more serious?
There was a healthy local tournament scene. There was like a really healthy grassroots sort of a three-man series that was going on. So the local paintball store was called Rudy's Paintball. Rudy Deans, he was pretty well known for his custom autocockers, Rudy cockers. So he had a couple of paintball stores, he had a couple of fields, and he ran a three-man series. And so that was like there's this heart of this community was around this paintball shop, and lots of different friends had different teams, and they'd go enter these tournaments and play and get cash prizes and stuff. It was good, but it wasn't like hugely competitive. There was another sort of competing paintball field and store called Skyline Paintball, and there was like a healthy rivalry between Rudy's and Skyline, which was like really fun. That we hated them, they hated us.
Yeah, there's
Um,
always got to be a good rivalry between paintball stores, doesn't there?
yeah, it was so good. Um, so Rudy's was such an integral part, and it was at Rudy's where I started to learn this concept of paintball family, and I realized like there was people that played on other teams, and we were shooting at them on that Sunday, but like they're still like our paintball family, and they became like really important to us and close friends. And over time, Rudy's had to kind of close down, and he consolidated to one store that was further away. And an interesting thing happened in that a lot of the players from those other teams that were part of that community were just absorbed by the team that my buddy Owen and I started, the Rockin' Cocks, which was just a pump team. So
Okay. Wow.
the
That's
the
a
big
cool
players who
name.
we were playing against, they ended up just joining us, and we had this big pump team family in Charlottesville that lasted for quite some time that we're really quite proud of.
So was there a pump division that you were playing on, or were you guys just going on the field and taking on golf shooting semi-auto?
Yeah, it's the latter. There was no pump scene, and that
Yeah.
wasn't the point. The whole point was we're gonna take pump guns into a tournament against an open tournament, and we're gonna hurt some feelings. That was the whole point, and we did a pretty good job. Like, it was very, very rare that we'd make a podium, but it was even more rare that we would finish in the bottom half. Like we did pretty well.
Yeah, that's I guess it takes a lot of skill to step on the field with a pump, but it probably takes a lot of balls as well.
I
It
appreciate
can be
that.
yeah, it can be pretty daunting sometimes. That's a cool. Yeah, that's I reckon. Yeah, big props for doing that. That's amazing.
Well,
So
in many
so
in many cases, I think the opposition were maybe a little bit more intimidated because they have everything to lose. They're playing a pump team; they need to win, whereas we're supposed to lose, so we don't have anything to lose. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, and I guess you probably saved a bit on the paint bills as well.
Oh, that's for sure.
That's probably the reason I join a pump team at the moment to try and save some money.
I think my first tournament, we were shooting phantoms with 10-round feeds on the top, and I think in the entire tournament there might have been like, I don't know, to 10, 11 teams. We finished in the top half, and our entire team shot 600 balls or so.
There you go. Y- yeah, you don't. I guess it goes to show you don't need to shoot boxes of paint to do well at tournaments. You can you can do it with 600 paintballs.
Well, shooting boxes of paint is sure fun though.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But I do own a pump, and I've gone out a couple of times and play with it, and I tell you that it's a different feeling. I reckon if anything, I sort of liken it to that first few times that you played and you shoot a guy, and it's just like, wow, I just, I finally shot someone, I finally did it, and then you do it with a pump gun on a field. It's a different feeling shooting someone with them. It takes a lot of skill, and you don't really get to spray and pray. You got to make that first shot count.
Absolutely. What's your pump gun?
Um, what have I got?
Sterling?
Uh, a WGP Ranger, I think it is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I got it on a good deal. It was one of the shipping container clearance. They just needed the room at a field, so I got a good gun.
Nice.
But unfortunately, I'm left-handed, and they have the right angle feed neck for the
Oh
hopper,
yeah.
so I get a hopper in my face every time I try and play with that. So it's good
I
fun.
I can't even pick up a right feed, left feed pump gun. It's got to be center feed, or I'll just go home.
Yeah. So where to next after you're on your pump team? You guys are stepping on next on the field.
Yeah. Well, so some interesting things happened there. There was initially the whole plan was we enter semi teams, we hurt feelings. That's what we do. And we had some great leadership over the years. My buddy, like I said, Owen, he was a big part of that. My buddy Krispy Kreme, he then sort of took over leadership, and another good friend of mine, James Spoon, we called him. Those guys really innovated things, and it was Crispy that came on and started to push for like entering pump tournaments, and not just like local pump tournaments, but let's go travel and like really make a mark on the pump scene. And I think that's when the Rock and Cox team was started to like build a real name, because we're entering in PSP pump division. Some of my lads were playing World Cup pump division, and like a few years ago, I was out at Sevens and I was talking to Blake Yarber, who came through the pump scene, and he talked about like he mentioned my team, like, well, I brought it up, and he's like, oh yeah, I know the Rockin' Cocks. We played against them back in blah blah blah, and it was like music to my ears. It was just so cool that somebody like Blake recognized the team that we started in Charlottesville. So eventually, it kind of pulled away from playing against open tournaments and just playing more competitive, more like nationally recognized pump tournaments.
Yeah,
And
I didn't even know that that was that big of a scene in the with the pump guns. That's cool.
yeah, well, I reckon all the major events would have a pump division, just like nowadays they've got mech divisions and that sort of thing. I think pump players are probably considered as being like elitist or snobbish amongst the larger community, but yeah. So eventually, though, I think the team started to kind of crumble a little bit because I think some really were like, nah, we play against semis and we hurt feelings, and others are like, oh, but we're making making our stamp, we're stamping our name, doing the whole competitive pump thing, and also, paintball, and people have lives and kids and girlfriends, and eventually they kind of faded out. Kind of when I was moving over to Australia.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What was the move to Australia for? Was it work or?
Well, my wife, I met my wife in Baltimore, Maryland, and she's Australian. She's from Adelaide.
Oh, cool.
So it was to come and be with her and with her family and get to know her side of the world. And I'll be honest, like I visited Australia a couple of times beforehand, and moving to Australia, it was it was a sacrifice. I miss my family, I miss my friends, but Australia is a pretty inviting place, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, it's and Adelaide's probably one of the better places of Australia as well. I was only just talking to someone today about I wish we could move to Adelaide. So yeah, it's a good part of the world. I've only been there once, but it was yeah, I definitely enjoyed it.
Look, we're trying to keep that a secret.
Yeah, if well, you never know, I might find myself back in that neck of the woods soon.
Well, anybody who's ever interested in coming over for an event, the local teams, the local community tries to get around anyone who wants to come and visit. So you just got to let us know.
Yeah, awesome. I'll keep that in mind. So what was the scene like when you landed in Adelaide? Did you immediately go out looking for a pump team to join?
I absolutely had that as on my agenda because the Rockin' Cocks, or the RC Armies, sometimes we call it, they were still competing at the time I was here, and I kind of felt compelled that I needed to like now establish the Australian RC Army over here to just kind of still be building the scene, building the brand, and in a way still communing with my brothers and sisters back home, to keep that connection with my paintball family back home. So I don't know if you remember Bill's. Do you remember Bill's Paintball?
Um, no.
So,
The
so
name rings a bell, but yeah, I don't.
back in the day, Bill's Paintball was like the Australian paintball forum, and from what
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Yes,
it's
I do
the way
remember that
people
now. Yep.
communicated. Yeah, it was like
Yep.
before Facebook really had an Australian paintball presence.
Yeah,
So,
it was when forums were the way to talk. Yep. And
100%.
yeah, I do remember that now. A lot of heated debates on that, and very people were very opinionated about certain things on that. Was sometimes maybe it's a good discussion.
Oh, that's right. And it's all still there, I think. You can still find all that. Just like PB Nation, it's, keyboard
Well,
warriors
there you
and
go. There's a history lesson. If you want to do some digging, you can dig on Bill's paintball. I didn't even think to look there. That's a good point there.
I reckon it'd still all be there. But I started reaching out there to try to get a sense for like the legality of paintball and what's the league like. Are there leagues? Um, and there was one person who was pretty responsive whenever I posted questions, and then they went by JSC Liaison Neo, and I was like, I don't know what that means, but this guy's helpful, cool. I first got to Australia, I really had to focus on like employment and that sort of thing. But eventually, I got to a point where I was like, okay, I need to find paintball again. Got back on bills, and I kind of posted a resume. Like I posted some videos that I'd made in the past. I talked about my team, and so some dude named Funky reached out to me,
Oh,
and he's like,
okay.
"There's a tournament coming up, and I need a player. So if you're in, I'll come pick you up." And so this lad came to pick me up, and it turns out his name was Simon Breeding. And Simon ran with Fusion Red, which there were three Fusion teams in South Australia. He played for Fusion Red, which was sort of like their B team.
Okay.
Um, and he took me out to my first paintball tournament, which was in 2009, a SAPA tournament, SAPA Round 4, which was a Scotty Stokes Memorial Tournament. And I got to play with Fusion Red, and that was awesome. Like at the time, the scene here in South Australia was pumping. There was like 20 teams or 20, 22 teams, something like that. We had two fields, two five-man fields running at the same time. Refs Inc. out, running the show. Paintball Pete was out there. Jilly was out there. Um, and we had teams like Kill Switch from Perth, starring Zach Hunter Kozerski, and Dan Woods was on that team back in the day.
Okay. Kill switch. Yeah. The name rings a bell. I remember reading about Fusion actually in the Australian Paintball magazine. It was out around that time. I do remember the jerseys that they had.
Oh,
Um,
really? Hmm.
yeah.
I'd be.
I
I
think
had
they won.
one copy of APM. I had one copy. I'd be keen to track down some more.
Yeah, I found a whole bunch about a year ago, and I can't remember what I did with them, whether I kept them or not. So I'll have to try and dig them too. Yeah.
But yeah, so that was my first time playing here, and the scene just looked really promising, and it was a lot of fun. And also at the time, Sapa was like, you'd play hard all day, and then at the end of it, everyone would like open up a beer and start cleaning bunkers and just hanging out and chatting, and it was pretty sweet. It was pretty cool.
Was that sort of
Um,
what you was that paintball community with all the teams back home in the States? Did you find
oh,
that a bit of a
yeah,
difference?
yeah, it's definitely different, and that's something I've kind of been reflecting on lately. Is that the scene in the States? Not that I was ever, a huge cog in that scene. I went to a couple of like major events really as a spectator, but I really only played in sort of like local tournaments. I did some traveling interstate, but over there you just kind of feel like there's this sea of players, and there's just so much going on, and it's so big. I mean, it's still a small community compared to say like NBA or something like that.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
here, the paintball scene in Australia, I think people are more known, and you know of other teams interstate, and you know of players, and it just feels like it might not be as big, but it's more connected. That's just my impression.
yeah. It's definitely I think just our laws sort of hold back the potential of how many players there could be. So I guess it's that small group that we really do have to band together. Otherwise, um, you'll end up having no one to play with if we all if we all sort of have our blinkers on and just stay in our little world and play with a couple of teams. So yeah, it does. I do hear that quite a lot from people that come over from the States that they yeah, that I just a story I remember I heard some guys saying that at a presentation they were surprised at the amount of people that actually come and watch the other teams get trophies. They said, man, it's only the top three teams that normally come get their trophies and go home. So they
Mm.
were surprised by things like that.
Oh yeah,
It's good to see that it was like that in South Australia.
I distinctly remember back in the day, competing and just like working so hard all day in a five-man event, and this team Clockwork wins, and everyone's just kind of dirty, and we're like, whatever. Everyone's just packing up their gear, and there's a presentation going on over there, and they're like, oh, Clockwork first place, and there's like three people clapping. Everyone's like, whatever, packing. I'm out
Yeah,
of here.
yeah, that's you wouldn't really get that over here. There's everyone hangs back. The referees are having beers with everyone. Yeah, it's definitely like I think people just hang out they don't really care about the result. Some people, it's just more to spend time with your friends at a paintball event.
Mm. Well, I haven't, I don't play so much lately. I've kind of been focusing on other ways of getting around the sport. But nowadays, when I do play, I think I'm just having more fun now because any day that I play paintball now, no matter if it's a tournament or whatever, I'm just like, whatever. I've got a couple of people who are good people that I'd like to just play with them because they seem like good fun. This tournament seems like it's good fun. Let's have a crack. And hey, we didn't finish last. Sweet. And I think that when you're just out there to have fun, it kind of like liberates you a little bit, and it maybe even make you play a little bit better. Not that like if you're
I was just going to say it definitely takes the pressure off.
Yeah,
When you're
well,
having
it
fun.
does. It does. I do want to say though, like, if you're out there to win and compete, like, yeah, you definitely need to take a different approach. But it does make playing paintball fun when you're just there to have fun. You have more
Yeah,
fun.
definitely. So you said in 2009 when you jumped in the Sapper, you said it was really big then. Did that continue for many years, or was there a change that sort
There
of
was
shifted?
there's definitely a change. I think we still had 5 man, maybe in 2010. I think we were still drawing teams from interstate, but there was a huge downturn at some point, and I don't know if it coincided with like a global financial crisis or just the rhythms that come with paintball and life and that sort of thing. But we had a huge downturn, and 5 man eventually faded to 3 man, and there was even a year there where Sapa was I think it was 4, but maybe 5 events a year, and we had a couple events that were just straight up canceled. And eventually, the Sapa tournaments, they almost just be turned into like punter days, like training days. We had a Sapa event, but it wasn't even a tournament. People would just come out and have a shoot, and it was getting pretty dire. Um,
Yeah. Okay.
but the thing that kind of changed that around was so Ashley Appleby came onto the scene, and I think he kind of wanted to make his like put his stamp on the scene. He had a vision for what he wanted to do, and he wanted to kind of set up another series. And I certainly won't go into detail. I think there was a little bit of tension between some parties at the time, but eventually Ash's PYANO series kind of took hold. And at first it was a 3 man series, and over time it's built up, and now it's become a 5 man series, and we're getting more and more teams out to come and play. So it kind of feels like we're getting some really positive momentum back with paintball, and we're getting new people out playing, and new teams are burgeoning. And you go out to the events nowadays, and there's like little families on the sidelines, and kids watching daddy out there playing, and there's like it's just little families out, people coming out to watch because they'd heard about it, and it's really lovely now, and hopefully it's just a sign of things to come.
Do you think it's been even pulling some people out of the woodwork that sort of fell out with the sport for a little while?
Yeah, I'm not really sure because we're definitely getting new people, and at the same time we are having some new people, like some older people coming back to the sport. There's a little bit of that, but there were like lots of teams in South Australia back in 2009, 2010 that every now and then we hear from them, or one player might come out and have a look, but those teams are gone. They're not really around anymore. So we haven't been able to rely on sort of the old guard. So through a lot of other people's efforts, more people are coming in. I will say, my boy Bryce McPherson, he's a guy who plays for Adelaide Assassins. I might be speaking out of turn here, but I think he found out about the tournament scene in South Australia because of my YouTube channel and some of the videos I posted up. So I'll take a little bit of credit. But there are people like Ryan Richter, who leads the Assassins. He runs gel ball events out here at Skirmish SA, and they do that to be able to to get money for their team so that they can keep competing. And at the same time, they use that. They demo paintball during the lunch breaks of their Gel Blaster events. They hand over their markers to the Gel Blaster folks and say, "Come try paintball." And we're starting to get people, like converts. So there's other people
so
doing.
gel balls, are they legal over there? The Gel Blasters?
Yeah, I certainly hope so, because there's some pretty big
Oh.
events that happen over here.
Yeah, okay. Oh, you guys are lucky if they are. It's people are going to jail, I think, over it in New South Wales, but they should be legal.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if things change drastically and the government tries to shut it down, because, that's what happens. But
people having fun.
Yeah. But there's a couple of people that really work hard to try to get other people playing. Again, Jim from the Jokers. The Jokers are kind of the heart of the paintball community over here. We've got this Team Havoc. Phil has his Team Havoc. He used to the Havoc boys used to be Fusion, and they had a good run at Super 7 Semi-Pro. Took second place recently at Super 7 Semi-Pro. So they're also pulling people in.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I was unfortunately at home for that round, the Super Sevens, but I did see them on the screen. I didn't realize that. I saw some social media posts, but it's good to see SA teams coming back over and competing on the East Coast.
Yeah, well, those Havoc lads are working really hard to make an impression over there, and they took second place. And just a side note, I did notice the commentary the quality had just dropped off in that last sevens, so must have been you.
Yeah, yeah. We'll just say that. I'll take that. So back home, you've what's the scene like as far as fields? Like, how many different options is there for people to play, and how many of those cater to speedball and to what's an airball field?
Back in the States?
Sorry, but in SA, in South Australia.
Yeah, look, that's a tough one, because I am incredibly biased and focused on one field, and that field is Skirmish SA. And the reason I only really deal with Skirmish SA largely is because that is the living, beating heart of the tournament paintball community. There are a couple of other fields nearby, and there was there's a couple that had really just kind of fun bushball fields, or sort of like Wild West fields. I forget what the concept fields.
Okay, really good themes and stuff. Yeah, because there's some interesting fields out there. That's for sure. Sometimes they don't play that well, but they definitely look good in photos.
Yeah, well, there are some. Unfortunately, my second favorite field, would have been maybe 5 years ago, just suffered too much damage in a fire. One of these large fires, bushfires that we had, and I don't think they could recover. But Brenton Rue, we call him Rui at Skirmish SA. He's the guy that just, opens every possibility up to have, that tournament paintball scene. There's other fields you can go if you just wanted to have a buck show and, finish the day by making the groom run through, shoot the groom up a bunch of times. It's really not what
straight
I'm
up.
after.
They just cater to really just to rental paintball.
Essentially, yeah. So I'm very biased. I just look to Skirmish SA. That's where people go to train. That's where different teams have keys to the field, so they can go out there and they can help tidy up, and they can build the field up a little bit. They can train. They can work with Rui to make the facilities better and plan for events that are coming up. I mean, that's where the community is, and that's what I'm all about.
Yeah, it's cool that they let other teams have keys to the field. That's awesome. It just shows that there's a lot of trust, and it sounds like a pretty tight knit community there.
It is, and the trust is definitely earned. It's not something that's it's just given away. Um, but it is, it is. We're lucky to have it, and we try to give back. Like I said, if it wasn't for Rui, I just don't know that we would be able to have a proper tournament community here in South Australia. We might be able to play paintball and see each other, but yeah, we just wouldn't have it. So we're really reliant on him, and he's generous to us, and we try to work together to just keep building. Like everybody involved just wants to keep building and seeing it grow and get back to where it was. And yeah, it's definitely a sweet family scene. Even though, family, we're out there, we love each other, we would get around each other and support each other. But then, when Havoc goes against Assassins, we want to see people, like you said, stepping on necks out there. Like it's competitive
Yeah.
and it's just good. It's so good. And we've even commissioned a couple of trophies. My boy Scout, who's just an excellent fabricator, he created what we called the dummy, and the dummy is like a derby trophy between sort of the two most competitive teams in South Australia, and we just created this really awesome trophy that's an eternal trophy, and it's just to keep the fires burning, just between the two top teams. They just want to keep them hungry to keep tearing this trophy off of each other back and forth and keep the smack talk up. And oh man, I love it.
Did they get to actually take the trophy home, and then you've got to give it to the other team if you lose?
Yep, and you actually have to walk over and hand it over. We had my boy Jim when the Jokers won at one time, and they had to give it up to Havoc. Jim had the class to take a knee and hold it up to whomever he handed it off to on Havoc. But now it's between Havoc and Assassins. They're the guys that are fighting for it.
Yeah, well, it's like you said, it really just takes the backing of one person just to be able to throw it all out there and put everything on the line and give you guys a field to play on. So it sounds like Brenton's really behind this big surge that we're seeing at the moment in South Australia. So yeah, good on him. That's awesome to hear.
Yeah, so Skirmish SA. If you're ever in South Australia and you need some paintball, that's the place, because we got to get around Rui because he gets around us.
Yeah, no, it's I'll definitely I'm not sure if he's someone I've met before, but I'll definitely be checking him out after this show, and we might even have a chat to him one day. That sounds cool.
Yeah, well, it'd be worth it. I used to do some interview stuff, and I never got around to Rui. He's a modest man. I think he would be up for it, but yeah, he just kind of likes to run the show from behind the scenes and make sure everyone's taken care of. Like I said, he's a modest man, but he's definitely been around the traps. He used to play back in the day, and I'm sure he's got some stories.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to uncover here is lots of stories about back in the day, just to shed the light on what we were and how we got to where we are now.
Mm.
So just then you were saying you're doing some interviewing stuff. Did you want to share a bit about that and some of your you said you had other interests in paintball, some of your side projects?
Yeah, sure. I've kind of had these like weird endeavors. I think I might have like ADHD when it comes to this sort of stuff, because I'll like throw myself at something for a little while and then it just becomes really hard to continue. Case in point, I have a YouTube channel, Wimpy617, if you want to check it out. I've got videos of tournaments from back in the day, so like music videos. And towards the end there, I think when I was really hitting my straps, I was doing interviews with people, and I took a lot of pride in them. But man, they were laborious. They took so much time and effort. And I did an interview with Kai, and I'd like to take a moment to just kind of publicly apologize to the man, because he's the last guy I interviewed when I was just completely exhausted with this sort of media, and I just never got around to cutting anything together for the man. He was generous to give me his time, and then I just had to tap out. And then I kind of turned my attention to photography, started getting out on the field and photographing events, photographing people watching events. some of my favorite photos that I've ever taken have been in the pits at Super Sevens, taking photos of people watching critical moments. And I just get chills looking at some of them, these photos of these guys, the high intensity, the emotion. It's just so good.
Well, that's one of the things that is sort of missing a little bit from paintball is because everyone's wearing a mask. It is hard to really capture that emotion and what's going through people's. I think it'd be really interesting to actually be able to watch a game of paintball happen with no mask on all the players, just to see what's going through everyone's the different ranges that they're going through on the looks on their faces. I think it'd be interesting, but it'd probably be pretty funny too. I think people pull some pretty funny faces on those goggles.
Indeed. Yeah, I agree. I'm very thankful for the masks that I wear when I play paintball because I definitely catch myself making some pretty stupid faces. But, those, I got to just say one more time, the pits out there at Sevens, man, just being able to sit in a corner and watch Yosh Rao run the Expendables is just awesome. And being able to, be in there as, Crisis is, winning a point, losing a point, winning a point, and just this, roller coaster of emotion. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I don't get much chance to sit in the pits anymore, but I feel that emotion does come through sometimes. You can really see it even up in the booth, and this last event I had to watch it all from home, but it's there's a lot on the line at the Super Sevens, and it's great to see. And it's just something that I also enjoy about paintball is just that you can pretty much be anyone off the street, and you can come and sit and watch, be sitting 5 meters behind you, like you said, Yosh Rao, and watching him run one of the best teams to compete in the country. It's amazing. I think we're spoiled to be able to do the things we do.
Agreed. The level of access is awesome. I've only come out to Sevens a couple of times, but I feel like there's a couple of those U.S. pros that I have a little bit of a relationship with now that, you wouldn't get that sort of access to be able to make a connection with those guys as easily in the States. And yeah, we're definitely spoiled. If I may, continuing with some of those other endeavors, we're talking about webcasts. I also do want to point out, I got, on that Wimpy's 617 YouTube channel, we are also doing live streams of the PYANO series now, and we've done it once. It was a really rudimentary approach. We call it the Imposter Podcast or the Imposter Webcast, because what are we doing here? We don't know what we're doing. But my buddies Rob, Scout, Kale, and Jim have really helped me go out to Skirmish SA where there's no power and there's no internet, and somehow, some way, we are able to run a webcast. And capture it live with commentary. Kale and I are in this booth, which is really just a tent with mesh around it, and we're trying to build it up better and better each year. And we've got the upcoming PYANO event. PYANO T10 is April 18th, and we're gonna have another webcast up, and we're hoping it's gonna be better. Have a few more cameras running, iron out some kinks. So on that Wimpy 617 page is also where we're going to be streaming our coverage of PYANO T10 and all the other PYANO events.
Yeah, awesome. So you said April 18th, is that right?
April 18th, Saturday, April 18th is the next PYANO event. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome. I think it cut out for half a second when you said the date. I just wanted to confirm. So I'll definitely be watching that because, to be honest, when we were talking before the interview, I was saying to me, South Australia was something that I knew there was always a scene there, but just seems to be it's hard to get the information on what's happening there. So all of this is news to me, and that PYANO series is brand new. So I'll definitely be keen to check it out. I love watching. I just love watching raw footage of paintball and just watching games play out. So big thanks to all you guys for making it happen. I'll watch anything as long as it involves paintball. It's good.
Well, like I said, I did speak to Adam over at Sevens to get an idea of how to set this up. But man, it does not compare to the Sevens webcast and NXL. But it's something, and it's free, and it's promoting our champions and what we got. And it's so rudimentary, but we're still pretty proud of it.
So now the scene's starting to build again in South Australia. Are you seeing that return of teams from Western Australia or across from Victoria or even from New South Wales?
Yes and no. We haven't had anybody from WA, but we've had a couple of champions come from Victoria for sure. So we've had Order 66 has had a pretty good presence over here. They're a pretty competitive team playing a lot of NXL and like Vic Fives and I think Vic Fives, and I think they had a semi-pro campaign at Sevens. And then there's Logan and his team Spewis. They come over from Melbourne quite frequently, and they're a great bunch. Yeah, Spewis. Do you know
I've never heard
Spewis?
of them before. No, not at all. So that's cool.
Well, let me
Yeah.
just tell you
I'll, uh,
very, very quickly. So Logan and his coalition of the willing have this team Spewis, and it's just for the fun. They just want to have fun. They just want to play paintball. And the captain of the team is whoever spewed most recently. So they
yeah,
obviously are
okay.
just in it for a good time. Um, and
Uh,
they've put a lot of time and effort to come out to piano. And then
yeah.
also our last round we had Belle Ching, who if you don't know Belle, you're missing out because she's so much fun. She's such a champion. Um, and Adam Simos, they flew in from New South to come and hop on a team to hop onto Order 66 actually. So we've had a
Yeah,
couple people
okay.
come from New South as well.
Because I heard that Belle, like I saw her on social media. She sort of was the one to tell the Havoc, as far as I know, was the one to tell the Havoc guys like, oh no, you can come over. Like you should give the Super Sevens a go. So, um, yeah, that's as far as I got out of the story. So if that was the case, then it was obviously a good tip to get them to come over.
Yeah, and she pitted for them when they played, and yeah, I wasn't there, but I'm confident that she was like integral in supporting those guys because she's good at what she does, and she's very generous, and she's a good baller, man. She's definitely a good baller.
Yeah, unfortunately, these days I get stuck up in the booth, so I don't get to see anything else except the pros play. So it's a bit of a shame. There is a lot of good paintball happening, in Sydney, but it's always because other events run on another weekend and the semi-pro events down on another field. I do miss out on a lot of that I used to, back in the day. I used to get to watch a lot of that, but um, yeah, it's a bit of a shame, but. So a lot of these people, it's unfortunate. I know who they are, but I just don't know their skills and abilities.
Well, it's interesting because, I've been paying attention for a few years now, and it's kind of cool to see some of those guys who I first started to know were on that semi-pro level are now trickling in either wholesale as a whole team, um, or just individual players getting pulled up into the pro division. So yeah, the semi-pro division is definitely like it's definitely important to support the pro level as well. It's like the proving grounds, I suppose.
So, well, speaking of semi-pro, how does the paintball or the tournament scene in South Australia work? Do you guys have divisions there? Is there, or is it just a straight open division?
Yeah, it's just an open division. Back in the day, but back in 2009, 2010, we had two divisions, but everyone still played everyone, and then
Yep.
there were just points allocated and, a first for pro, first for semi-pro, etc. But right now I think we're still very much building. We had 7 teams at our last 5-man event, which that might seem quite modest, but that's a very big deal to be working back to 7 5-man teams. And, I'm hoping that we're going to get 8 5-man teams coming up. We've got a couple of other interested teams that we're kind of pulling together. So it's not flourishing enough that we can have different divisions. So it's just an open thing. And there are clearly some teams that are more competitive than others, but everyone's still getting around it and trying to get some wins, trying to get some points, and being proud of what they can do, even if they're playing a team that's much more experienced and aggressive or whatever it is.
Yeah, I remember in Sydney it was exactly the same when I first started playing. There was two divisions, but everyone played everyone, and I think some of the biggest lessons I ever learnt was when you were a newer team and you were playing those top tier teams and really getting it handed to you. I found it was a quicker way to learn lessons than if I was just playing against people of equal skills. So it's probably better for those teams that are newer coming in, and they might not win, but they'll be learning a lot more than if they were sitting in their own wheelhouse, you know.
Mm. And I think one reason I love this sport is that learning curve where you can go out not really knowing a whole lot, and you can play and you can come off, and then you just had a whole bunch of people at the nets watching you, and they can tell you what happened, and they can tell you what you did and what you should have done. And then you can watch the next team play, and then you can go, oh, wait a minute, now I see what they're doing. And you can just, you learn so much so quickly because of the nature of the game.
Well, it sounds like it's almost working full circle, you know, going all the way back to when you said you were on the field with your tipman, and then your friend pulled you aside and gave you those tips and helped you one up and move on to bigger and better things.
Well, that's it, right? And, once you kind of learn a bit and you get your feet under you, then it's time for you to pay it forward and get around the next people coming through. If not for just the, it being the right thing to do, you got to do it so that you're constantly building the scene and developing more teams and more people to play with and more people to play against, and it's what we got to do.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, if you're not helping out that next generation or helping anything, it does get pretty lonely, as you guys have seen, and we did see it in Sydney as well. For a while there, we were struggling to get teams to come in. So you've really just got to put it out there and just help everyone, even if you help them until they start beating you, and then you ask them for help.
Yeah.
So what are your current moves, like your current plans? Are we going to see you on a field at all this year with a gun in your hand, or
look, I'm not really
with a
sure.
camera?
I'm not really sure. I will feel that I have let myself down if I don't get out to another sevens with the camera, because it's just so thrilling to get there and to, like I said before, be in the pits and be taking pictures. And we're quite distant here in South Australia, so I feel that I'm always trying to get to some events to catch up with people again and get to know people, different people, and know people better. And so I definitely want to do that. I did play at Dwayne's, at the end of the year. He had his Wagga 3-man. I played that at the end of last year, which was a lot of fun. I was trying to get out to Sniper's Den. They were doing like an old school event, like center flag, push event. I was going to try to get to that. I just don't know if it's in the cards. Largely, my goal is to build a couple of projects that I'm working on. One is the webcast. We know the webcast isn't going to end up being spectacular, but we want to get it to a point where it's engaging. And, I personally think it's engaging just because, I'm biased. But we want to build that. We want it to be something that people want to watch, but we also want it to be a tool for teams that have played. They can go back and watch it and learn from what they've done. But my buddy Jim from the Jokers, he and I are also working on a clinic series here down in South Australia, and we've got 2 planned for this year. The second one is my buddy Jim's project. I'm going to leave him to talk about that. But the first one that I've got on is May 24th. I've got Zach Hunter Kozerski coming over to work with the lads over here and girls over here.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. So I'm hoping that's another thing that we are building into like our repertoire, is kind of organizing a couple of competitive players that can come into our neck of the woods and help lift our community, lift our culture, lift our competitive nature, and also just help put South Australia on the map a little bit more. That's another thing that we're doing, and another thing that people can talk about. just to raise the scene a little bit. So those are the two main things. But yeah, I'd love to play Yara. I wouldn't mind playing the Yara 10-man.
Yeah, definitely looks good. I unfortunately haven't been able to get out there, but it's a good field, and they get to play on the old school hyperball. So yeah, it's a great setup they've got there. So I hopefully will be able to play that one day as well.
It's very, very
So
on trend.
oh yeah, it's all coming around full circle now. So before we go, did you just want to let everyone know, if they wanted to track you down on social media or check out some of your film? Did you want to give that another plug again?
Yeah, sure. So, I don't have a huge presence, but, you can feel free to find me on Facebook. It's just William Macdonald on Facebook. But I also have like my photography profile on Facebook, which is just Wimpy617. Wimpy's been my paintball nickname for forever. So Wimpy617 is also my YouTube channel. So if you just Googled Wimpy617, you'd find me somewhere. And like I said, I've got my photography stuff is on Facebook. Wimpy617 is my Instagram, which is just my photography stuff. And then I've got my video content on YouTube as Wimpy617. So yeah, that's largely where you'd be able to see my stuff and get in touch with me.
Yeah, awesome. So was there anyone before we go as well that you wanted to give a shout out to? Any sponsors or any people?
Yeah, if I could. I don't have sponsors. I've got people, and I've already spent a lot of time listing the people that have really, backed me and backed our scene here. So I won't go into that. I would like to just take a second and just mention my wife, who's just very generous. She's not really involved in the scene, but she knows how important it is to me. So she's always supportive. And I also just want to give a quick shout out to my buddy James and his family out in Colorado. He's been a huge part of my life in paintball and very influential. And he's dealing with ALS, motor neuron disease, which is a pretty confronting thing. So they got a lot of challenges ahead of them. And just wanted to say I think about those guys often, and I love them. So I just wanted to take a moment to say that, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, no worries at all. So that's yeah, it's a real shame that. So yeah, big shout out to all of them, and hope everyone there is doing well. Last question I'll ask you before we let you go. Was there anyone that you think that you would recommend to have on the show? Someone that you would like to hear their story or like to hear a bit more about?
Yeah, definitely. And it's a tough one to narrow down. I'm just going to throw 3 names at you. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Okay, so Mo from Sydney Syndicate, Mojo.
Yep.
That guy has traveled all over the world and has played with so many different people, all sorts of tournament series. That guy, he's very soft-spoken from what I know. I don't know him terribly well, but I'd like to think I know him well enough to know that he's probably got some great stories, and he probably knows a whole lot more about the game than he realizes. So Mo would be good value.
Yeah, definitely. Not someone I thought about. So that's a heaps good name. Thanks.
Yeah. I am also a quiet fan of Amanda Andrews, who is a ref with Refs Inc.
Yep.
She seems to have a great time on the day, but she also has a real commanding presence. She really knows her craft as a ref. And I have a lot of time for her in the few times that we've hung out. I think she would have a really cool perspective as, one of the, the refs. She's usually one of the head refs at PYANO anyway.
Okay. Yeah, awesome.
But the one that I'd really go for is Trinity Hook of Shoot.
Okay.
Mainly because, the times that I've popped out to sevens and caught up with her, she's so affable and welcoming. But she would have a really interesting perspective being a photographer at the top level of Australian paintball. I think she would have some interesting stories, interesting perspectives. And I just found her to be very generous with her time when I first got out there and was trying to find my way with my little camera. She was very welcoming and generous to me. So I think Trinity would be a great interview as well.
Yeah, awesome. So thanks a lot for that. I'll let you off the hook for giving me 3 names instead of 1. That's they're 3 awesome names. So it's good to get some female suggestions, and even like I am trying to do on this show, not just cover players. So it's good to it would be good to hear from some other perspectives. So hopefully soon we can hear from some of those people on the show. So well, thanks very much, Will, for giving up your time, and it was a awesome story. It's great to hear people that love Australia that much that they move over here and make it their home. And thanks so much for sharing your stories and giving up your time.
Hey, Scotty, it was my pleasure. I appreciate what you're doing. I'm sure it's taken a lot more work than people realize, but I think this is a great endeavor. So stick with it and build it up, because I need more podcasts to listen to on my way to work.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, and you've been a big help to me as well behind the scenes. You've given me a few good tips that have helped me be a little bit more confident and move on with the show. So thanks very much, Will. That's all we have for today. So again, thanks for joining us, Will. I'll see you next time.
All right, Scotty. Thanks, brother.
Thanks once again for tuning in to Down Under Paintball, and big thanks again to Will Macdonald sharing all the happenings of the South Australian paintball scene and what's going on down that part of the country. Hopefully it's inspired somebody to maybe get across and check out one of their events, or maybe just to have a look on the YouTube channel and check out that PYANO series. Once again, I'd just like to say a huge thank you to everybody who's tuned into the podcast, who's shared it around, given us the likes on social media. It means a lot to me. I've tried to keep my shows as edit-free and free-flowing as possible. So the workload isn't giant on me, but it's still taken a little bit of time to get to where we are now, and every little like, share and comment I get just means a lot to me. It helps me to realize that people are interested, and I'm going to keep pushing forward. So thanks everyone for helping me share all these great Aussie paintballing guest stories. You guys are helping put Aussie paintball back in the limelight, and I couldn't have done this without your help and without all these amazing guests I've been having on. So thanks again for everyone. This is Down Under Paintball. See you next time.